lot of Trump defenders who tried to distance him from the people who stormed the Capitol. And when Trump was defending himself in the Jack Smith case, his lawyers were talking all about how he couldn't have known what everyone was going to do, certainly not that they brought weapons and were going to do a sedition. Now, we're hearing that Rudy Giuliani, who of course was a critical part of that entire effort, is going to be rewarded with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Remember, he was disbarred by independent legal peers in both New York and D.C. He was indicted in Georgia and Arizona for those related efforts. He himself did not storm the Capitol, of course, and an indictment is not a conviction. But at the level of who should be given these civilian honors, well, certainly no one in the bars that disbarred him thought that was fitting. Trump is also rewarding others directly. There are January 6 convicts who've been pardoned that are agitating for something that not only rewrites history, but insults every single police officer who risked life and limb that day. Trump lawyers, connected lawyers, I should say, and Jan 6 lawyers saying maybe they should pay those former convicts. Trump has talked up the idea. An attorney for the rioters has now met with the DOJ on the plan. We've heard and seen reporting that many inside DOJ who have been solicitous to other Trump ideas think this is, shall we say, an insurrection too far. We'll be right back. Is on his 2025 summer reading list. Obama says the book is a useful primer on social media and the attention economy and how they have, quote, warped our democracy and reshaped our lives. This is really an awesome honor for our colleague Chris Hayes. He has addressed it.
He read the book, which is incredibly cool. Really genuinely an honor to make that list and have him comment about the importance of this book that I worked so hard on.
Amen to that. It is pretty cool. And so Chris mentioned it. We thought we'd tell you in case you didn't see that. And congratulations to full disclosure, our colleague and friend, Chris Hayes. You can also check out the book if you're interested. That does it for us. The weeknight starts now.
Good evening and welcome to the weeknight. I'm Alicia Menendez with Simone Sanders Townsend and Michael Steele. Tonight, Donald Trump signals he is ready to send the National Guard into Chicago in moments. Mayor Brandon Johnson is going to join us to respond.
And in just the last hour, the House Oversight Committee releases thousands of pages of Epstein documents as members prepare to hear from the victims.
Then, as the election cycle ramps up, key members on both sides of the aisle say that they will not run for re-election. But we begin tonight following breaking news this evening. Today, a federal judge ruled that Donald Trump illegally unleashed National Guard troops on the streets of Los Angeles earlier this summer. Judge Stephen Breyer says Trump's White House, quote, systematically used armed soldiers and military vehicles to set up protective perimeters and traffic blockades, engaging in crowd control and otherwise demonstrate a military presence in and around Los Angeles. In short, defendants violated the Posse Comitatus Act. What we would expect to be a major setback for the president's efforts to militarize Democrat-run communities, it doesn't seem to be fazing him at all. While Donald Trump didn't give a timeline for a troop deployment, he in fact doubled down this afternoon saying, "We're going in." Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem confirmed the administration's plans to expand their immigration crackdown and said that they would begin in Chicago as early as this week. It will be led by the architect of Trump's Los Angeles immigration crackdown, Gregory Bovino. Thousands of Chicago residents took to the streets to oppose Trump's takeover efforts on Labor Day. It was protests like these in Los Angeles that Trump exploited to justify illegally federalizing the California National Guard. Here is Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker about what they expect to come.
We know before anything has happened here that the Trump plan is to use any excuse to deploy armed military personnel to Chicago. If someone flings a sandwich at an ICE agent, Trump will try and go on TV and declare an emergency in Chicago. I'm imploring everyone, if and when that happens, do not take the bait.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who you saw at that press conference, joins us now.
Mr. Mayor, welcome. So it's a real pleasure to have you here to talk about what's happening in your city and how you're dealing with it. I'll admit up front, I was a little bit skeptical going into the presser this afternoon, and I walked away impressed. I was impressed by the steely nature of your resolve in the face of this assault, but also in the face of, you know, what happened this weekend, 54, 57 shootings in your city. And you contextualize that, I think, in a very important way. Because at the end of the day, that is what Donald Trump and MAGA are grabbing a hold of, to sort of castigate your city and to blame you for things that some are in your control, a lot outside of your control. How do you now, in the face of this impending invasion by troops, you know, from different states, you got Texas and others gearing up to send their National Guard into your backyard. How do you contextualize that in the face of that, and in the face of what happened this weekend, to help America understand exactly what you're dealing with in your city?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and thanks for having me this evening. You know, first of all, community safety is my top priority. As mayor of the city of Chicago, it's what I think about every single day. All of my efforts that I have instituted since I've been mayor have been driven towards driving violence down in the city of Chicago. This has been a challenge for well over 60 years. And in part because of gross disinvestment, and previous administrations took an approach that, quite frankly, exacerbated the challenges in our community. And what I've said from the very beginning, the safest communities in America have one thing in common: they invest in people. And that's what we've done. We've invested in youth employment. We've grown that by over 50%. We've expanded mental and behavioral health care services. We're building more affordable housing to stabilize our communities. And then we've invested in our Detectives Bureau, because one of the challenges that we've had in Chicago for too long is that when violence does occur, justice is not rendered. And so we have a clearance rate now of nearly 77%, where we are bringing people to justice. It's clear that this is not about safety for President Trump, because if it were, he would not have cut over $800 million from violence prevention programs like what we have in the city of Chicago, where we have CVI workers that are working to disrupt violence. If this were about safety, he would not have cut, you know, the ATF budget by nearly 30%. My police department has collaborated with the federal government to get illegal guns off the streets of Chicago. Just a couple of weeks ago, we took over 170 guns off the streets of Chicago. Many of them have switches or attachments that allow for guns to be turned into machine guns. These are severe, high-power weapons. If the president was serious about safety, he would go into the red states where guns are being trafficked from, like Mississippi, Indiana, that come into the city of Chicago and cause the type of violence that we saw just this past weekend.
Mm-hmm. Mayor, we've watched similar acts unfold in Los Angeles, in Washington, D.C. In fact, just today, you had Mayor Bowser issue an executive order. It requires local coordination with federal law enforcement, quote, to the maximum extent allowable by law within the district. The order gives no expiration date. Are you and Mayor Bowser coordinating at all? Is it fair to say that you are not on the same page about the best way to go toe-to-toe with this administration?
Well, look, I know whether it's Mayor Bowser or whether it's Mayor Karen Bass or if it's, you know, Mayor Brandon Scott in Baltimore, we all want to build safe communities, right? That is, I believe, everyone's #1 priority. Now, I put forth an executive order just this past weekend to give clear direction and guidance to how we prepare for, you know, what essentially is an illegal, unconstitutional act. In fact, my executive order has been affirmed by the federal courts already, because the acts that, you know, this president engaged in have been deemed as illegal and unconstitutional. Look, the bottom line is this president is not serious about driving violence down across America, because if he were, he would be talking to mayors like myself and asking us what's working. There's a lot of work to be done, but look, I wake up on the west side of Chicago. I go to bed on the west side of Chicago, a community that has been disinvested in historically, and we have certainly had our challenges. Every time someone gets harmed by violence, we're talking about my neighbors, it breaks my heart, but it also reaffirms my resolve to ensure that we make the necessary investments to drive violence down. This president is trampling on our Constitution. He's behaving in a way that is undermining our democracy, and he's trying to get us to submit our humanity to his will. That's not what we're going to do in the city of Chicago. We're going to stand up for working people, make the necessary investments, hold the people accountable who are causing harm, but we need this president to actually show up with real investments. If he were serious, why did he cut 30% of the budget of ATF? 1,465 Americans who have been serving in these capacities got cut from his budget. For what? To militarize ICE, his own private security entity that causes harm and terror against communities. This president is reprehensible, his behavior at this moment. And that's why we're standing firm in the city of Chicago to protect people, to stand up for people, and then to invest in people. That's how we're building the safest, most affordable big city in America.
Mayor Johnson, I talked to a number of people today that said you are, in fact, finding the strength to fight back, and a number of people that said, well, you are in a different situation than Mayor Bowser is in. That being said, something happened at the presser today that you all said that we want to get some more clarity on. The governor said during the press conference that they have reason to believe, you all, that the Texas National Guard has been mobilized and is staging. What makes you all so sure of that? And are you planning some preemptive legal action? And if so, why not just announce it today?
Well, first of all, the governor has received intel on good word that that's what their motivation is, because he can't federalize the National Guard here in Illinois. So he's going to go to Republican states to abuse his power. In terms of a preemptive act, obviously, if there's no crime that has been executed, there's no legal action that we can take preemptively, right? But I can say this: we have sued this government, the federal administration, multiple times, over 40 cases. We saw one where we just beat the Trump administration when he tried to withhold resources from cities like Chicago, who are welcoming cities. We put forth this executive order to make a clear distinction here. We're going to protect the people of this city. This president, I believe, has caused so much turmoil, not just across America, but around the globe. The illegal implementation of his taxes have already been determined that most of them are illegal. This president can care less about the people who are struggling in our country. I remember a time, Michael, when presidents declared wars on poverty. This president has declared war on poor people. If you look at the arrests that he made primarily in D.C., the vast majority of them were for traffic offenses as well as citations and misdemeanors. This president is not serious about driving violence down in the city of Chicago. This is about distraction, distracting people away from his failures. When the labor numbers don't work out in his favor, he puts forth another stunt. When his illegal activity and his proclivities are exposed, he puts forth another political stunt. I grew up in the 90s. He needs to quit stunting and actually do his job by investing in people. That's how we drive violence down in the city of Chicago. That's what I'm doing. Building affordable homes, standing up for working people, making sure that we have employment opportunities for our young people, making sure that we're investing in our police department with strategies that work. He should ask more questions. The problem with this president right now, that he is moving an agenda that has been put together by the extreme right in this country. He has shifted the largest concentration of wealth into the hands of the few. That's not how we secure and build a democracy. It's the antithesis to what we stand for. And that's why in Chicago, we're going to fight back.
To the extent, Mayor, before we let you go, the idea of stunting by the president, you signed an executive order this weekend in which you noted the police will not be deputized to do traffic stops and checkpoints for the president, noting that the president is out of control. What does that look like, sir, when they show up? How do you coordinate between the governor, yourself, your administration, and the troops that do show up to the state. What does that look like? Have you and the governor talked through exactly how this plays out for you?
Yes, first of all, it's about making sure that the people of Chicago know their rights. That's the first step. But it's also about protecting our families. And so our police department, their responsibility, and they're doing an incredible job at this, by the way. My superintendent, who is working hard to restore the morale of our police department, to make sure that we're building community trust. And so one of the things that we are doing for sure is making sure that when people protest, that they can do it peacefully, right? That their First Amendment is protected. But in no way will my police department coordinate with immigration enforcement. That is not what our welcoming city allows for. In fact, we believe it actually harms and makes our communities less safe. If people call for an emergency, the operator doesn't ask what your immigration status is. It asks you what your emergency is. And we're going to continue to work with the governor, the county board president, our attorney general, as well as our community organizations. Here's one thing that I think people should know about Chicago. We have a long history of standing up for the rights of people. This is a city that, you know, whether it was Dr. King coming here and saying that if we can figure it out in Chicago, we can do it anywhere in the world. Reverend Jackson said, keep hope alive. President Obama said, yes, we can. I stand on the shoulders of giants here. Our resolve is very clear, that you either support the Constitution or you do not. This president is a grave threat to our democracy, but he is going to come face to face with clear resistance in the greatest freaking city in the world, the city of Chicago.
All right, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Really appreciate you. Joining us now is Ankush Kadori, former federal prosecutor and senior writer for Politico magazine. Welcome, Ankush.
So this ruling, the judge wrote, Trump's intention to call National Guard troops into federal service in other cities would be, quote, creating a national police force with the president as its chief. What could possibly go wrong there? Does this open the door for other mayors to begin preemptive legal action?
Well, I think it will be difficult to do it preemptively because we do not yet know if they'll be deployed and what the scope of that deployment would be. In California, there was a trial, right, where there was evidence put in about what was actually happening on the ground. However, it would accelerate, I think, a city like Chicago's ability to file a lawsuit, because if you're a lawyer in one of these other cities, this is now the first and most significant ruling in this area, so you're going to want to use that as a template, right? Not just the sort of the legal findings, but what were the facts that mattered to Judge Breyer, right? Things like participating in running routine searches, doing traffic stops. Those are the things that Judge Breyer said ran afoul of the Posse Comitatus Act. So you're going to look to those things if you're in Chicago in case you need to file a lawsuit quickly.
What about the mayor just underscored that because the president knows he cannot call in the Illinois National Guard, like he doesn't want to set up a confrontation with the governor in that way, given what just happened in the ruling in California. They've got intel that says they're mobilizing they in the federal government, the Texas National Guard. What is there a precedent for the president federalizing the National Guard of one state to bring it into another state?
Look, not that I'm aware of, but this is also a very bad idea on the merits. To have
to say the least.
To say the least. Right? And
that was a little bit of an understatement.
One of the points that the mayor made there, which I thought was a good one, was, well, if we have a gun violence problem, so why not send in the National Guard to deal with that? Well, look, there may be a president from another party in 2029. And what if that person decides, well, I can't faithfully execute the gun prevention laws in this country, so I'm going to send in the Illinois National Guard, the New York National Guard to Tennessee, right, or to Nebraska, because I'm going to go get all the people who have illegally possessed firearms, maybe because they had a conviction or because they were using drugs. I'm going to go get all the drug trappickers because we have a fentanyl problem. These sorts of moves that Trump has been making can be used in the other direction. And I think that the red states, the governors, the Republicans in Congress have not been sufficiently attentive to this for their own interests down the line.
Well, something we have not really spoken about in depth here today, but I'm sure we will, is the fact that he's not moving like a man that plans to leave voluntarily and willingly in 3 years. Ankush is also not moving because he's sticking with us. Up next, the House Oversight Committee releasing over 33,000 pages. House Oversight Committee released those 33,000 pages of Epstein-related documents
the Justice Department provided last month, most of which appears to be already public information. Our team is currently going through those files. We will bring you any important updates. NBC News is reporting that this sudden decision comes as GOP leaders are trying to stave off an internal Republican revolt over those files. This afternoon, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie filed a discharge petition, which could force a floor vote compelling the DOJ to release all of the Epstein files if it obtains 218 signatures. The Epstein controversy is likely to dominate Capitol Hill as Congress returns from their 5-week recess. Earlier, survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's abuse met privately with Speaker Mike Johnson and members of the Oversight Committee ahead of the highly anticipated press conference tomorrow. Here's how some of the Democrats described that meeting.
Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but his hurt and his harm is alive and well in the daily experiences of these survivors. Maxwell is incarcerated, but it is these survivors, these victims, who are still very much in jail.
It is very important that we believe these women, that we believe these survivors, we honor that, and that we work to bring them justice.
Former federal prosecutor Ankush Kadori is back with us. And joining us now, Spencer Kuven, attorney representing several Epstein survivors.
Spencer, thank you for being with us. Ankush, thank you for staying with us. Spencer, can we start with you? Because I'm just wondering your take on the fact that a number of these survivors, many of whom have not made them, their names have not been public. Even now, a lot of these women are still private citizens. Tomorrow, they are going to become public names. I know none of your clients specifically are in the list of folks that are going to this press conference tomorrow or that met today, but your take on the fact that this is happening.
Well, first of all, I think it's about time. You know, when they started this entire committee investigation, the people they went to first were the perpetrators. It made absolutely no sense. If they really wanted to get the information about what had happened, they needed to go to the victims, obviously, and advocates like myself that were working on behalf of these victims that lived through the prosecutions of these cases to find out what was going on. But a lot of these girls did not want to become known in the general public because this was a horrible act that occurred to them when they were children, 14 and 15 years old. They did not wish to make this a part of their life. Some of these women are now in their late 20s and early 30s, and they have put this in their past. They've tried to put it to rest. But the government has kept this slow drip of information for the past 20 years, basically re-injuring all of these young victims by continuing to put this in the public domain. Release the information, get it all out there so that we can all see it, and finally shut the door on this awful saga.
You know, Ankush, I want to delve a little bit into the politics here because that is also impacting how these victims are perceived and received by the public in a big way. And I think it's very interesting to watch Congressman Massie and Conor Ro-Khanna sort of join this force together to sort of really push this thing. And it has annoyed the hell out of the Speaker of the House. And he thought that he could shut it down and cut it out of the political system by short-circuiting things in early August. We don't have to deal with this. To Massie's credit, and I say go Massie go, right? He's forcing the issue. Do you think the press conference tomorrow with the victims, survivors standing there, now America sees the faces and hears the voices. Does that help push the momentum and the energy behind getting those 218 votes that Massie and Conor need to get this petition done? You know, it depends on what they say. Right, and it depends on what who says the victims, okay. Right? And let me just say, you know, this is not a monolith, right? There are a lot of people in this group, and we have to be respectful of all of their interests. But there may be some, maybe we won't hear from them tomorrow, who do not want the public release of all of the Epstein files. I have to say, you know, I understand the politics behind it, why Massie would join up with Conor on this. The problem with their bill is that it mandates the public release of all of these documents, to just put them on a website. And I am very skeptical of the notion, the premise, it seems, that so many people have adopted, that dumping all of these files into the public domain will somehow stop people from
spinning up conspiracy theories or asking questions. It will just do more.
It will be searchable and it will be downloadable.
It's like WikiLeaks.
It will just even feed more and more conspiracy theories. It will not. Look what happened with 9/11. 9/11. We had the gold standard of a commission investigate 9/11. There are still people who think that the government did it. There are still people. So conspiracy theories, like, you can't kill it off by just dumping all the documents onto the internet. I think it's a bad idea.
With respect to getting information out about something that clearly had serious ramifications for a lot of young women at the time.
Well, look, first of all, I'm glad to see that the victims' interests are once again sort of taking some priority here. But from my perspective, everything we've seen over the last 6 months, including the public polling, suggests that the public is interested principally in two different things. One is, what did the government actually do when it conducted its review of the evidence and released that very terse DOJ FBI memo saying Epstein committed suicide, there's no client list, we have nothing else to tell you. People were correctly sort of up in arms about it, including Trump's own supporters. And two, what are the references to Trump in the government's investigative files? According to the Wall Street Journal, he was briefed in May by Attorney General Pam Bondi that he was in the documents. And I'm not just saying this is in polling, half of the country thinks that he was involved in the crimes. So I think it's completely fitting for the public to demand and to get some answers at some point. I don't think they're coming anytime soon with the folks in the White House and the House Republicans running this. But I think that is a question that is very, very much on everyone's minds.
Spencer, I would add a third point to that.
I was going to add a third one too. Go ahead.
You can add a fourth unless we're on the same page, which is, Spencer, I think there are a lot of folks that want to know what happened in Florida when Alex Acosta signed off on that sweetheart deal. And as much emphasis as there has been on these documents, can we pull up the calendar of everyone who's going to be giving depositions just in the next few months? On September 9th, you've got former AG Loretta Lynch. On September 19th, you've got former Labor Secretary Alex Acosta, which is the big one I want to circle in big, bold marker, because there are a lot of questions and a lot of information that he potentially has. If you were conducting that deposition, Spencer, what is it you would want to know from Alex Acosta?
100%. And respectfully, I've got to disagree with your guest. When it comes to the information that the victims want out, the victims want to know what happened. How is it that all of this credible information, all of the information that they told the police, that they told all of the FBI investigators, how is it that based on all of that information, Epstein ends up into this sweetheart deal? That's the information that the victims want out there. We want to know, and we want answers as to exactly what came down from the federal government at the time. And listen, this is not political. I've said this before on various different programs. This ranged through multiple different White Houses in keeping this information secret. It was all Democrats, Republicans alike. It didn't matter. Politics didn't matter to the victims. They want to know what was discussed behind the scenes with Alex Acosta and the Attorney General at the time to make the decisions they made to give him this sweetheart deal. That's what they want out. And they want the videos. There are numerous videotapes that the federal government has seized. They want those released so that we can see who else was a part of this conspiracy.
Well, I have one follow-up, and then I'm sure Ankush would like to get in on this. But I guess I wonder, then, do you support, because Ankush mentioned that the bill that Massey and Ro Khanna have together mandates the literally releasing everything, putting up on a website, making it searchable. Do you and your clients support that?
They support that as long as their names are kept confidential, because they were minors at the time of all of this. So if the minors' names are kept confidential, then the information should be released. And again, if minors are involved in any of the videotapes the federal government has in their custody, then the minors should be kept confidential and blurred out. But otherwise, the people who were soliciting and being engaged in these activities at Trump's various homes and on video, those people should be released. We should see who they are.
I would say one last thing before we go, that 1, 2, and 3 that were placed on the table leads to a number 4, and that is how much all of that fed into the sweetheart deal that Ghislaine Maxwell got as well. So you've got all of it from Costa to what we see happening with a lot of this information right now. So
we're having a national conversation about pedophilia. Ankush Kaduri and Spencer Kuven, thank you both for your time. time and for the conversation. Tomorrow, folks, we will speak with the ranking member of the Oversight.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump has vowed to take his tariff fight to the Supreme Court after a federal appeals court ruled Friday most of the tariffs imposed by the White House on nearly every other country have no legal basis. This includes the Liberation Day tariffs imposed in April, as well as earlier tariffs against Canada, Mexico, and China. The decision upholds an earlier ruling by the U.S. Court of International Trade. In its decision, the appeals court called tariffs, quote, a core congressional power. After headlines, we'll speak with the former Solicitor General, Neil Katyal, who argued the legal challenge to the tariffs, as well as Oregon's Attorney General, who brought the case. In international news, a landslide in Sudan's Darfur region killed more than 1,000 people Sunday. That's according to the Sudan Liberation Movement, an armed rebel group that controls the region. The landslide destroyed a village in the Mara Mountains where residents had sought refuge to escape fighting between the Sudanese army and the rival paramilitary faction, the Rapid Support Forces. The Darfur region is largely inaccessible to international aid groups due to the civil war, which is now in its third year. In Afghanistan, the death toll from Sunday's earthquake in a remote mountainous area near the Pakistan border has topped 1,400 and is expected to rise, with thousands more injured by the disaster. It's one of the deadliest earthquakes to hit Afghanistan in over a decade, with aftershocks felt in neighboring Pakistan and as far away as India. Roads have been blocked and communications have been disrupted. Aid workers are forced to walk for hours to reach affected communities. Here's one of the survivors, Mohammed Ibrahim.
A total of 25 people from my family were martyred, and they're still under the rubble. I ask the international community to provide us with aid, and God will grant them rewards.
The U.S. offered its condolences on X without pledging any aid. An official from the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Afghanistan told Reuters U.S. aid cuts have hampered the response to the earthquake, saying, quote, the number of people we have on the ground is much less than we would have had 6 months ago, unquote. Meanwhile, China, India, Pakistan, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates have all pledged disaster relief assistance to Afghanistan. In Gaza, Israeli attacks since dawn have killed at least 54 Palestinians, include people seeking food. The attacks came as Gaza health officials recorded another 13 deaths due to starvation, 3 of them children. That brings the number of hunger-related deaths in Gaza to more than 360. According to a leading global monitor, more than 500,000 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are suffering catastrophic hunger due to Israel's blockade. On Monday, a steady stream of Palestinians fled northern parts of Gaza City as Israeli forces pushed deeper into the Gaza Strip's largest urban area, home to about 1 million people.
I want to find a place where I can stay with my sons and daughters. I don't know where to go. Moving out requires money. I can't even find something to eat. It has been 2 months without food. I don't know where to go. I borrowed money from here and there. No one is standing by me to give me anything. No one is standing with the Palestinian people.
On Monday, millions of Israeli students returned to their classrooms to begin the new school year. Meanwhile, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees warns of a lost generation of more than 660,000 Palestinian children in Gaza deprived of schooling for a third consecutive year. The world's leading Genocide Scholars Association has approved a resolution establishing Israel's policies and actions in Gaza meet the legal definition of genocide as found in the Genocide Convention, constituting war crimes and crimes against humanity. Melanie O'Brien's president of the International Association of Genocide Scholars.
This resolution declaring what is happening in Gaza as genocide passed by an overwhelming majority, far beyond the 2/3 majority required.
This comes after hundreds of staffers at the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights signed a letter urging the UN agency to declare Israel's assault on Gaza a genocide and calling on UN member states to suspend arms sales to Israel. In Spain, dozens of ships carrying civilian activists and loaded with humanitarian aid departed Barcelona Monday, bound for the Gaza Strip. The global Samud flotilla is the largest attempt yet to challenge Israel's blockade of Gaza. Swedish activist Greta Thunberg helped to organize the flotilla.
Israel are very clear about their genocidal intent. They want to erase the Palestinian nation. They want to take over the Gaza Strip. And if that doesn't make people act, if that doesn't make people go out of their couch and take action, fill the streets, get organized, then I don't know what will.
In Australia, peace activists hold a nonviolent protest blocking the entrance of Port Melbourne, demanding Australia suspend trade with Israel. Meanwhile, in Colorado, dozens of Jewish peace activists and allies rallied Friday outside the Denver office of Senator Michael Bennet. Protesters are calling on him and Colorado's other Democratic Senator, John Hickenlooper, to join 27 other Senate Democrats and independents who voted in support of a resolution to block arms transfers to Israel. In Yemen, thousands of mourners gathered at the largest mosque in the capital Sana'a on Monday for the funerals of the Prime Minister of Yemen's Houthi-run government. We'll have more on this story later in the broadcast with the Palestinian-American scholar Rami Khoudi. The Trump administration tried to deport over 600 unaccompanied Guatemalan children over Labor Day weekend, but a federal judge temporarily halted their removal, ruling the actions unlawful. The National Immigration Law Center filed an emergency request to stop the deportation flights, saying the children face abuse, neglect, persecution, or torture if deported to Guatemala. As the children were loaded onto planes in Texas and waiting on the tarmac, U.S. District Judge Sparkle Sutnanan was woken at 2:35 a.m. to address the case. The judge later issued a 14-day restraining order allowing the children to stay in the U.S. for now to challenge their removal. We'll go to McAllen, Texas, to speak with a lawyer arguing on behalf of the children later in the broadcast. In Texas, Republican Governor Greg Abbott has signed a new congressional map into law, which is aimed at giving Republicans 5 more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. In response, Indivisible's National Advocacy Director, Andrew O'Neill, said, quote, Governor Abbott's mid-decade redistricting effort is anti-democratic and discriminatory. He's not just rigging the maps in Texas, he's attempting to undermine the midterm elections and diluting the power and voice of communities of color in Texas while doing so, unquote. Meanwhile, in Utah, a judge tossed out the state's current congressional map and ordered the Republican-led state legislature to draw a new one by September 24th. The move could favor Democrats as the party could pick up a seat in Salt Lake City. Chinese President Xi Jinping welcomed leaders of Asian nations to Tianjin for the regional summit on Sunday, warmly greeting Russian President Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi as friends and opposing what he called the bullying and Cold War mentality of the United States under President Trump. It was the first visit by Prime Minister Modi to China in 7 years, signaling a thaw in relations between India and China. In a joint statement following the talks, members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization strongly condemned recent U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran. The group made no mention of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, the European Commission says a plane carrying European Union chief Ursula von der Leyen was left circling above an airport in southern Bulgaria Sunday after an apparent GPS jamming attack on the plane. According to the Financial Times, the plane's pilots were forced to land using paper maps. The European Commission blamed Russia for jamming the plane's navigation system and said the incident would, quote, ramp up our defense capabilities and support for Ukraine, unquote. In Indonesia, at least 7 people are dead, hundreds more injured amidst a crackdown on anti-government protests that erupted in Jakarta a week ago before spreading across Indonesia. The uprising began with protests outside Indonesia's parliament against salaries and housing allowances for lawmakers that are nearly 10 times the minimum wage in Jakarta. Protests spread nationwide after footage showed a paramilitary police unit using an armored vehicle to ram a group of protesters, killing a 21-year-old delivery driver. Protesters have since burned or ransacked buses, subways, and the homes of several prominent politicians. And more than 1,000 demonstrations were held across the United States Monday for Labor Day as protesters came out against what the AFL-CIO called a, quote, government by and for the CEOs and billionaires, unquote. The protests come after President Trump stripped nearly 500,000 federal workers of their union protections in August. On New York's Long Island, workers, community organizers, and climate activists marched through the streets of the Hamptons to expose billionaire donors who are bankrolling the mayoral campaigns of Governor Andrew Cuomo and Mayor Eric Adams. Meanwhile, in Chicago, labor leaders joined Mayor Brandon Johnson to denounce Trump's threats to blanket Chicago with National Guard troops and federal immigration agents. Stacey Davis Gates is president of the Chicago Teachers Union.
In Chicago right now, we are reconstructing school libraries so we can teach the truth and media literacy. In Chicago, we are reopening mental health clinics, abolishing sub-minimum wage, making sure that workers get paid time off. We are in a reconstruction with a black mayor whose family escaped Silas, Mississippi, and imagine his leadership. We're doing it with an organizer, not a billionaire. We are a government of the people for the people, not a government of billionaires for billionaires.
And those are some of the headlines.
The offices of New York Senators Kristen Gillibrand and Chuck Schumer. Jewish Voice for Peace has shut down this office building. A number of people are getting arrested. Inside, others are about to be arrested. Among them, New York State Assembly member Claire Valdez of Queens and New York City Council member Tiffany Caban. Also protesting are the actor Sarah Ramirez of Sex and the City and other TV shows, as well as well over 100 people, Jews and their supporters. Their T-shirts say, "Stop arming Israel and stop starving Gaza."
Take us out. Why? Because we have to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza right now. It hasn't been 2 weeks, 2 months. It has been far, far too long, and our government is funding this genocide. What can you do as a New York City Council member? Stand with my constituents who are demanding an end to the siege in Gaza, who are demanding aid to be let in to help to feed the folks who are starving in Gaza right now. For anyone to stand by while a genocide is perpetrated on innocent people. We're seeing a human-made famine unfold in Gaza that we've been warning about for years and months now. We need to let aid in as soon as possible. We need to stop funding Bridgette in Gaza. The senators in New York State are complicit in that if they do not stand up against it. That's why I'm here. My name is Karen Zellenmeyer, and the question isn't why am I here, the question is why isn't everybody here? How do people wake up in the morning and go through the day like this horror isn't happening? I just don't understand it.
My name is Morgan Bastakis. I'm a member of Jewish Voice for Peace, and we are here as Jewish New Yorkers shutting down the offices of Senator Schumer and Gillibrand, demanding that they stop starving Gaza. People are getting arrested right now because we are outraged, we are horrified witnessing these scenes of starvation, of Israel's incredible violence against the people of Gaza, and just 2 days ago, both Schumer and Gillibrand voted for more weapons to Israel. So we as Jewish New Yorkers are outraged. We say not in our name and not on our dime.
My name is Roz Pacheski. I'm here because I must be with my people. And my people are Jewish Voice for Peace, who have been fighting this genocide relentlessly for 3 years.
You got arrested at Grand Central.
Yeah, you interviewed me. We were on the floor. We shut down Grand Central Station almost 2 years ago. We shut down the Statue of Liberty. We shut down the Manhattan Bridge. We have raised our voices. We have fought the corporations and the Zionists, and I'm a Jew. But I am an anti-Zionist Jew, and it means that I do not believe that a Jewish state is a valid entity because it's based on the exclusion and the extermination of a whole other people. They did that to us, and now we do that to another people? No.
I'm Naz Issa with the Palestinian Youth Movement, and we're here to protest the unconscionable vote by Gillibrand and Schumer against blocking arms shipments to Israel. The time has gone far beyond words. It's time for actions. And now these senators are on the record supporting, continued arms flow to a country that's committing a genocide. And we're here to say that that's unacceptable.
What do you think of these mainly Jews who are getting arrested?
I think it's a great sign of that the movement against the genocide, that the support for the Palestinian right to life is a cause that mobilizes all people. It mobilizes people across religion, across race, across class. And I think, when I look at the crowd today, I just see that reflected back so clearly.
Outside New York Senators Gillibrand and Ested, including New York City Council member Tiffany Caban and Claire Valdez, New York State Assembly member. Starving Gaza, let Gaza live. Stop starving Gaza, let Gaza live. Stop starving Gaza, let Gaza live.
With Palestinians in Gaza who are being starved to death right now. It needs to stop. We're using USA dollars to help them do it, and it has to end.
Of Trump's speech at the United Nations on Tuesday. White House senior advisor Stephen Miller, architect of widely condemned immigration policies such as family separation. Miller also pushed for the recent decision to significantly cut the number of refugees the United States will accept, as well as a proposal that will make it harder for immigrants to become citizens or get green cards if they have ever used a range of public benefit programs, including Obamacare, children's health insurance, and food stamps. This is part of Trump's address that Miller wrote.
Illegal immigration exploits vulnerable populations, hurts hardworking citizens, and has produced a vicious cycle of crime, violence, and poverty.
Well, Trump's anti-immigrant rhetoric and policies, many handcrafted by Stephen Miller, are leading some in Miller's own family to speak out against Stephen Miller. This includes Dr. David Glosser, Miller's uncle, who recently wrote a piece for Politico magazine headlined, "Stephen Miller is an immigration hypocrite. I know because I'm his uncle." In it, he wrote, "If my nephew's ideas on immigration had been enforced a century ago, our family would have been wiped out." For more, we go to Philadelphia to speak with Dr. Glosser, a retired neuropsychologist and former faculty member.
Trumpism, which bases itself. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if you could talk about some of the volunteer work that you've been doing, and also you've worked with some refugees, specifically one from Eritrea that you've talked about in the past.
Since my retirement, I decided to act as a volunteer in these issues. I felt that the immigration issue was very important, and my own family was helped by one of these volunteer organizations, something called HIAS, which my great-grandfather was the first beneficiary in his will, in fact. So I volunteered with HIAS as a neuropsychologist. People who are coming to the United States who make legal application for asylum are called asylees. They're able to, any way that they come to the country, be they at a border legally or whether they just infiltrate the country illegally. People who report and ask for asylum are, according to American law, are allowed to do so and must have a hearing. Part of what they have to do, according to U.S. law and UN and the United States, is also signatory to UN Commission rules and treaties. Part of what they, according to our laws, part of what they have to do is they have to demonstrate that they have a reasonable fear of persecution if they remain in or return to their country, persecution or danger. Now, people like the gentleman in my story, Joseph, who was grossly tortured and mistreated as a child soldier, as a child conscript in his home country of Eritrea, and managed to escape with his life. Upon his exit from Eritrea, they don't provide him with a certificate documenting that he'd been the victim of torture and persecution. So when he gets to the United States after his 10-year journey, he's got to make the case that he has a good reason to be afraid of going back to Eritrea. Accordingly, there are voluntary agencies, such as the ones that I've been volunteering for, who have attorneys, doctors, nurses, psychologists, social workers, and so forth, who help these people to make to establish whether or not they have a reasonable fear of return. So physicians and psychologists, and in my case, neuropsychologists, will listen to the story and see if there's evidence that people have suffered persecution, torture, and the like, both for the physical and as well as the biological, as well as the mental scars that may arise.
Do you see your work as a kind of atonement for your nephew, Stephen Miller?
No, not at all. I don't have any obligation to atone for anybody else's sins. To the extent that I enact atonement, it would be for my own faults.
Did many
I see this as part of I see it as part of my duty as an ethical human being and as an American citizen.
Did many of your family members agree with you? Did people in your family want you to come forward?
It's an interesting question. Prior to this, I had been writing and speaking on the subject to some degree, but various members of my family implored me to seek a wider audience so that our name not be associated with these policies. After the Politico article came out, I received no less than 100 phone calls, letters, emails, public social media comments, and so forth from family members, both close members and those I don't even know, thanking me for the piece. The other interesting part of this is that after this story went more or less viral on the web, I received literally thousands of contacts through social media, through email and telephone.
To President Trump, who, among other things, it's believed crafted Trump's UN speech yesterday. Dr. Glosser, retired neuropsychologist, former faculty member at Boston University School of Medicine and Jefferson Medical College. We'll link to your piece at Politico with the headline, Stephen Miller is an immigration hypocrite. I know because I'm his uncle.
Table. Also be sure to follow the show on social media at Weeknight MSNBC. All In with Chris Hayes starts right now.
Tonight on All In.
There is a White House cover-up at the very highest level in getting the American public the information to bring justice to these victims.
Donald Trump and the Epstein cover-up.
Not everybody is getting justice, and that's not right.
Tonight, as most House Republicans try to let Trump off the hook, the bipartisan push to release all the Epstein files. My exclusive interview with Republican Congressman Thomas Massie and Democrat Ro Khanna. Then,
if the governor of Illinois would call me up, I would love to do it. Now, we're going to do it anyway.
The president announces his plan to send his war fighters to another American city. Plus,
how did you find out over the weekend that you were dead? You see that?
No.
The ongoing concern about the oldest president to ever take office.
The last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. Just saying.
When All In starts right now. Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Well, folks, summer's over. Everyone's going back to school or work, and Donald Trump is again trying to get past questions about his long-standing relationship with the late child sex trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein. And he's getting new pushback from lawmakers on Capitol Hill, including some members of his own party. Today, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky took the first step to force Congress to vote on a bill that would require the Department of Justice to release all of its so-called Epstein files. And that news came just as Hallie Jackson of NBC News sat down for an interview with 6 Epstein survivors and 3 family members, one of whom was speaking out for the first time.
Why now? Why are you deciding to speak and to share your story now?
Because not everybody is getting justice, and that's not right.
Each of us, in our own way, over the past several decades, have stood up and told our stories so that someone would listen to us, only to be faced with the frustration of being ignored. And so I think for us all to be here today, there's strength in numbers, right? And courage is contagious.
Those women are also saying that if the government will not bring Epstein's accomplices to justice, they can.
They have emails, they have flight logs, they have a list they've compiled, right? And I feel like if they're not going to release this list to the public that everybody wants to see, we want to know who it is. A lot of us survivors know. We've been compiling lists of our own, and we have so many other survivors. Please come forward, and we'll compile our own list and seek justice for, on our own.
We also learned that just hours ago, the House Oversight Committee is releasing more Epstein documents they obtained from the Department of Justice with a huge asterisk. Those documents were almost exclusively information that's already been publicly released. Remember back in February, right? One of the first chapters of this saga, when the Trump DOJ, to great fanfare, invited a bunch of right-wing influencers and gave out those binders of previous released Epstein files to them, hoping it would end the controversy. Well, they're just rerunning the play, basically doing another version of this with what appears to be a lot more of the very same information. So again, Trump is contending with this scandal that he tried to bury with the help of Mike Johnson in the House. I mean, remember, we knew for years, as we reported on this show consistently back for a while, including 2024, we knew for years about the president's friendship with Epstein. Things started happening fast this summer after the DOJ announced that, well, they'd conducted an internal review. There was nothing to see there. Quickly followed by outrage, and then this incredible reporting from the Wall Street Journal, reporting on a letter that Trump reportedly wrote Epstein for the pedophile's 50th birthday. That very weird, creepy, cryptic letter. Trump files suit against the Journal and its owner, Rupert Murdoch, for $10 billion, calling the story fake news, even as other outlets corroborated it. The Journal followed up with new reporting that Trump was told back in May by his own Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who had hundreds of agents, we think, according to reporting, going through the files, that his name appeared multiple times in the Epstein files. At that point, Democrats and Republicans in Congress were demanding answers from the White House. Until House Speaker, remember this, House Speaker Mike Johnson summarily cut short the chamber's business and sent members home early for summer vacation a week before they were due out. And all of that just to avoid having to hold votes on releasing all or part of the Epstein files. So just go home, chill out, let's everybody forget about it. And it has always been a safe bet to make in this era of terminally short attention spans. I mean, that was part of the administration's play on Epstein, right? And then they sent federal troops into Washington, D.C., like, hey, look over here. The other part was recruiting Epstein's former partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, to their cause, as perverse and repulsive as that seems. Maxwell, who was convicted of 5 counts, including sex trafficking of a minor and conspiracy, recruited, groomed, and abused many of Epstein's victims herself. She is the one person alive who has been convicted in connection with many of these notorious crimes. And now she appears, at least from the outside, to have gotten her own sweetheart deal from none other than the Deputy Attorney General of these United States, the number 2 of the Department of Justice, Todd Blanche, who was also Donald Trump's personal criminal defense attorney. Maxwell was moved to a minimum security women's camp against and in violation of Federal Bureau of Prisons regulations, which had to be explicitly waived for her to go there. And all the convicted child sex trafficker had to do, it would seem, was vouch for Donald Trump, the one man alive who can pardon her or commute her sentence with the stroke of a pen.
President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me, and I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president now, and I like him, and I've always liked him. So that is the sum and substance of my entire relationship with him.
Okay, well, I think that settles it, right? We can all agree. The idea that one of the most, I think, safe to say, notorious criminals in America, who even the federal government said lied to protect herself, might be telling the truth this one time that she was given a huge personal incentive for speaking. So this has been the Trump damage control playbook. And there have been a lot of parts of it, but the victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell are not letting it go. And neither are members of Congress. Today, 10 survivors of Epstein's abuse spoke about their experiences behind closed doors with members of the House Oversight Committee. Some of them are among a group of survivors who are expected to speak to reporters tomorrow, alongside Republican Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky and California Democrat Ro Khanna, who will both be with me here in just a minute. The two men are leading a bipartisan push in the House for the government to release what it knows about the Epstein case. And of course, there was Massie's tactic from just a few hours ago. It's called a discharge petition, where you get a majority of House members to sign on. So he has a bill in the House that would compel the Department of Justice to release all of its files in Jeffrey Epstein. The bill has been held up in committees. Massie's procedural motion would essentially force that bill to the House floor for an up or down vote if he can get a majority of members to sign on. And if Massie and Khanna can succeed in getting half the House to add their names to that discharge petition, Congress could vote to release the Epstein files in the next few weeks. Congressman Thomas Massie is a Republican of Kentucky. Congressman Ro Khanna is a Democrat of California. And they join me now. It's good to have you gentlemen both here. I want to start with you, Congressman Khanna, because you were able to speak to some of these survivors today in a closed-door session of the House Oversight Committee, and I wonder if you could just tell us how that went.
Well, I was not in the room because I want the survivors to share their own stories tomorrow, and for it to be clear that neither Congressman Massie or I spoke to them. But from what I heard from colleagues, it was harrowing, it was disgusting, people came out in tears, and what we need to remember is this is not partisan, this is not anti-Trump, this is about standing with survivors, this is about protecting kids, this is about morality. It's something that unites progressives, independents, moderates, and MAGA supporters, and tomorrow is going to be a moral and spiritual reckoning for this country.
Congressman Massie, this House Speaker Mike Johnson clearly would rather that this not happen. I think it's a fair thing to say. I want to play you his response to the House discharge petition today and get your response to it in terms of how you understand where things stand. Here's what Mike Johnson had to say earlier.
So the discharge petition from Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, I hope I'm using the right word, will ripen soon?
Well, no, I guess it would if they get the right signature.
If they get the signature,
but it's now a moot point. It's not even necessary. I mean,
you don't think it's going to happen?
There may be a floor vote of one measure or another. We have our own resolutions to do all this, but I don't. It's sort of not necessary at the point because the administration is already doing this.
So that's the line, that the administration is already doing everything. So there's no purpose in this. Are you ready to throw in the towel?
No, it's hardly a document release. Most of the documents they released are already publicly available. And what Mike Johnson is doing by having his own resolution is to give political cover to those people who aren't supporting the effort by Ro Khanna and I. But here's the problem. When people go through this trove of documents, the political cover is going to go away and they're going to be exposed once again. I think you were right when you said this is the equivalent of the Pam Bondi binders being handed out. They're only going to increase the outrage. And in the meantime, you've got these survivors who are still not getting their justice. By the way, Mike Johnson has panned the legislative effort by Ro Khanna and I, saying it's poorly drafted. but he took 3 pages out of our bill and put them verbatim in his bill, completely cribbed them. But he took the teeth out of it, is what he did. So he's got a meaningless resolution to provide a fig leaf to the people who are afraid to stand up for these survivors.
Congressman Khanna, are there good faith concerns to be had here? It strikes me there are, about the fact that normally when a criminal investigation is closed or it's reached its end, right, that people that may have come up in the course of that investigation are not publicly released because there's genuine reputational damage that can come even in the incidental mention or uncorroborated claims. Are you concerned about that at all?
Sure, it's a reasonable concern. First, the resolution protects the identity of all victims. It protects against the release of sensational acts. And the reality is, given that rich and powerful men who abused underage girls have basically had impunity, and that this has gone on for over a decade, well before Donald Trump was there, and that we have ignored victims, and that the President of the United States ran on releasing the files, and that the Attorney General said that there's a client list and the files need to be released, we need to have the overarching value of trust in government be there. And in this case, as an exception, we should release everything and trust the American people to make a distinguishing discernment between someone who got a scholarship grant from Epstein and someone who was at a sex party for Epstein engaged in sex trafficking.
Congressman Massey, you know, one of the things that I find so striking here is that the Bureau of Prisons had to actively sign a waiver to move Ghislaine Maxwell to a facility that is so low security that by the department's own regulation, she cannot be in. And that happens after she met with Todd Blanche and she said that, you know, Donald Trump was always a perfect gentleman. Like, isn't there a role for some congressional oversight here about how exactly that came about?
Oh, absolutely. This is unprecedented, the kind of treatment that she's been given. I think the best way to clear President Trump's name is to release all the files. I actually don't think he's done anything criminal. I think he may be covering for some rich and powerful people that are friends of his. And in fact, some of those billionaires are running ads against me in Kentucky right now. One of them is in Epstein's Black Book. So we're getting close to the center of power here. And I think, embarrassment is not a reason to conceal all of this stuff. We've got to get it out in the open, regardless of whose friends might be incriminated.
Congressman Khanna, do you have a sense that take me through the actual timeline here, and do you have enough confirmed yeses to actually get the number you need? Because I've been covering Congress for 20 years, and I could list you 100 discharge petition stories I've covered, and I don't think I've ever covered one that got over the line.
Don't jinx us, Chris. Don't jinx us. We've got 212 Democrats, and Thomas Massey has done an extraordinary job. We have 4 Republicans already on the first day, so we only need 2 more. I just want to say this about Congressman Massey, and I hope I don't hurt him more in his district by saying nice things. But wherever you are on his ideology, he's a profile in courage. I mean, he's got billions of dollars being spent against him. He's got billions of dollars because people don't want the Epstein release. He's got billions of dollars because AIPAC has been attacking him because he's spoken out for human rights in Gaza. And we don't agree on everything, but I wish there were more members of Congress who voted their conviction and stood up for their conviction. And this would not be possible to get to 218 if it weren't for his leadership.
But don't give me too much of a compliment. If you dig into what he said, Ro Khanna is responsible for 212 of the signatures, and I have to get 6. He will probably get his 200.
Yeah, they're the harder 6.
Let me talk about the 4 who are already signed. So we just need 2 more, but it's myself and 3 women: Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. And these are women taking up for women. And I think we need more men on the Republican side of the aisle to step forward and do the right thing.
Final question for you, Congressman Massey. Is it your understanding the White House is whipping against the vote? That was reporting today, but has that been clear to you?
Oh, absolutely. I've talked to the person who's doing the whipping. I've seen the texts being sent to my colleagues. They are trying very hard to keep this from getting the requisite number of signatures to force the vote. And I think it's foolhardy. I think we'd be served better politically. Obviously, the victims would be served better in terms of justice, but Republicans would be served better politically by just following through on this promise and releasing the files.
Final question to you, Congressman Khanna. Can we expect, to the point we were making before about a lot of the stuff about Epstein has been reported, has been in the public, domain. I mean, Gawker wrote about the Black Book, 10 years ago, maybe? I think I read that piece, right? So a lot of this has been reported. Is it your expectation we will hear or see new things tomorrow from some of these survivors who are going to speak?
Absolutely, we will. And you know what we should listen to is the survivors. And they're saying for closure, they need the Epstein files released. And that's because they believe there's a lot of information in there about people who engaged in assault and abuse of young girls that has not come out. And that's the only way we will have them accountable. And this is something that I hope everyone tunes in tomorrow, 10:30 Eastern time, and that the whole country demands the release of the files. If we do that, I'm confident we're going to get to 218 and 40.
And decided to double down on his villain persona in place of developing an actual personality. In 2017, a video of Miller's high school student government campaign speech emerged in which he argued that students shouldn't pick up their own trash because janitors exist.
Am I the only one who is sick and tired of being told to pick up my trash? And we have plenty of janitors who are paid to do it all.
That video perfectly encapsulates his bratty little prince.
I know.
He's just such a brat.
His classmates quickly booed him off stage. Saying truly horrible things without apology was, again, something Miller seemed to really enjoy. After 9/11, Miller took to his high school newspaper column and penned an article called, quote, "A Time to Kill," in which he urged a violent response against radical Islamists, a catch-all category into which Miller appeared to suggest that most Muslims fell, and accused his classmates and administrator of inadequate patriotism.
Sorry, but Santa Monica High School, this one's on you for letting a minor publish an article called A Time to Kill, which is already the title of another thing that was very popular. Hack behavior.
Here's another clip of 17-year-old Miller joking about torturing Iraqis. Cool.
But as for Saddam Hussein and his henchmen, I think the ideal solution would be to cut off their fingers. I don't think it's necessary to kill them entirely. We're not a barbaric people. We respect life. Therefore, torture is the way to go. Because tortured people can live. Torture is a celebration of life and human dignity.
And something so pussy about a guy being like, "Get him, boys!
Yeah,
get him, boys!" That's his whole tough guy vibe. Seize him. At least he showed a sliver of self-awareness here.
But something's just not going right. My hair is just receding. I look like I'm 35.
True.
And I'm
Absolutely.
balding,
I agree with
35-year-old
Stephen
at that.
Yep.
Yeah, you know.
Is Jeffrey Epstein. And this is Donald Trump. They certainly look like they know each other pretty well, don't they?
The first time that I met Donald Trump was at a party at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. There was an orgy going on, and I was 13.
Before the election, Trump and his associates said that they would release all the information about Epstein's private pedophile island and the billionaires who frequented it.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Then things changed.
Attorney General Pam Bondi's Justice Department says there was no incriminating client list.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Over the last few weeks, I've combed through hundreds of documents and even more videos in order to get to the bottom of what we really know about the Epstein list. I'm going to try to answer questions about how close the most notorious sex trafficker in American history was to Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. Whether the world's elite power holders get a free pass to sexually assault underage women, and why both Republicans and Democrats have tried to cover up the story. More than that, I'm going to try to boil down mountains of evidence and theories and speculation around Epstein to try to explain how notorious sex parties on Epstein's island and at his properties in Florida and Manhattan were likely integral to Trump's rise to power, at the same time that they might also turn out to be his undoing. While you have likely seen some of this material before, often in short and disconnected clips on social media, putting it together here in one place reveals a truly disturbing picture. So please bear with me to the end because it only gets more intense and more bizarre and more incriminating as we go deeper. But my legal team has noted that we need a caveat up front, so I'd like materials. Activity till proven guilty. The most important with criminal prosecutions that may or may not tell is how this information illuminates the character. Trump and Epstein kindled their friendship around 1987, while both men were budding titans of industry. At the time, Trump was the founder of a real estate empire, including a soon-to-be failed casino in Atlantic City and Trump Towers. Meanwhile, Epstein was a private hedge fund manager catering to what he claimed were only billionaire clients. They both bragged in the press about their fondness for beautiful women. Here are Trump's own words as quoted in a 2002 New York Magazine puff piece. "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. Many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life. Of them are on the younger side. No doubt for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. A lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. Many of them are on the younger side. No beautiful women as much as I do. Many of them are on the younger side. He likes beautiful women as much as I do. Many of them are on the younger side. He likes beautiful women as much as I do. Many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life." That's a real quote in a piece that was meant to make Jeffrey Epstein look amazing. Trump solidified his position as a professional judge of women's beauty in 1996 when he became the owner of the Miss Universe competition.
Somebody got very upset with me, a woman. I said, no, this is all about beauty. This has nothing to do about anything else.
Right. Almost immediately, young models, many as young as 13, started accusing Trump of various types of sex. Many as
nothing to do about anything else.
Right. Almost immediately, young models, many as young as 13, almost immediately, young models, many as young as 13, started accusing Trump. Young models, many as young as 13, started accusing Trump of various types of sexual impropriety. Here is Trump saying as much on the Howard Stern show in his own words.
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show. Yes. And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, you know, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. You know, I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
like
everything is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? You know, they're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women.
Do this to raise your credit score fast? Have you seen?
Or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be.
Show.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age.
On the same show.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
the
like
upper bracket,
Foley with 12-year-olds.
According,
I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to
show.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
the
like
upper bracket,
Foley with 12-year-olds.
According,
no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
the
like
upper bracket,
Foley with 12-year-olds.
According,
no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
the
like
upper bracket,
Foley with 12-year-olds. No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
the
like
upper bracket,
Foley with 12-year-olds.
According to flight logs released by the FBI, Trump flew on Epstein's personal plane at least 8 times between 1993 and 1997, primarily hitching rides between New York and Florida. Epstein bought his private island, Little St. James, the year after the flight log's last entry. This means there are no publicly available flight logs to the island, but Trump did tell the New York Times in 2025 that he had been invited to the island many times.
I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were privileged of going to his island.
Many times.
I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were privileged of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but I never had the privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island.
Yeah, he called it a privilege. Well, you are free to take Trump's word on the matter. Many women have come forward saying that Trump had sexually assaulted them in one way or another over the last 30 years. They variously reported that rapes and assaults happened in Epstein's presence and while Trump was all on his own. To date, there are at least 27 public accusations of rape, inappropriate touching, and 7 public accusations of rape. To date, there are at least 27 public accusations of rape, inappropriate touching, and voyeurism. 7 public accusations of rape. To date, there are at least 27 public accusations of rape, inappropriate touching, and 7 public accusations of rape. To date, there are at least 27 public accusations of rape, inappropriate touching, and voyeurism by Trump, including a court case filed by E. Jean Carroll. Now, in a taped deposition to that case, where she claimed that Trump assaulted her at a department store in New York, Carroll's lawyer asked Trump about the allegations. And Trump responded that Carroll enjoyed being raped.
She fainted with great emotion. She actually indicated that she loved it. Okay? She loved it until commercial break. In fact, I think she said it was sexy, didn't she? It was very sexy to be raped. Didn't she say that?
So, sir, I just want to confirm, it's your testimony that E. Jean Carroll said that she loved being sexually assaulted by you?
Well, based on her interview with Anderson Cooper, I believe that's what took place.
The attorney also asked him about the now famous Access Hollywood tape.
That's
assaulted by testimony.
It was very sexual,
being raped.
She fainted with great emotion. She actually indicated that she loved it. Okay? She loved it until commercial break. In fact, I think she said it was sexy, didn't she? It was very sexy to be raped. Didn't she? In fact, I think she said it was sexy, didn't she? It was very sexy to be raped. Didn't she? In fact, I think she said it was sexy, didn't she? It was very sexy to be raped. Didn't she say that?
So, sir, I just
said it was sexy, didn't she? It was very sexy to be raped. Didn't she say that?
So, sir, I
said it was sexy, didn't she? It was very sexy to be raped. Didn't she?